Hi, I'm James, Senior Professional Development Manager at the Assessment Network, Cambridge, and I'm here today to answer some of the internet's most searched questions about the whys of assessment. And I haven't seen these yet. So the first one, why do we have exams? Okay, peeled off fairly well there. The whole purpose of exams is ultimately we want to work out what someone knows, what a student knows, what a person knows, and we can't do that just by observation. We have to give them an exam to give them the opportunity to show what they have inside their heads, what they know, what skills they have, and then give them the chance to demonstrate that to us. Okay, the second one, why do grades matter so much? It's a really big question. Ultimately, grades are a way of communicating the results of an exam or an assessment. So if we want people to have fair access to universities, to employment, to those kind of opportunities, we want a way of communicating how well someone can do something, their knowledge, their skills. And grades are a good way of doing that. They're quite understandable. If I say someone has a score out of 80 out of 100, what does that mean? Whereas, the understanding of a grade 9 versus a grade 7, that has more of a kind of inherent understanding behind it. So the third question, why is assessment necessary in education? Yeah, it's a really big question, and lots of types of assessment. We can often talk about formative assessment or summative assessment, or the idea of assessment as learning. Ultimately, in education, if we look at formative assessment, we want to know whether our students have understood something before we go on to teach them something new, particularly if that builds on that understanding. And if our students need more support, if they want something or something needs to be explained to them again, formative assessment is a really powerful tool for identifying that. So yeah, I think almost everyone who works in education would feel that some form of assessment is needed on a regular basis within the classroom. All right. Why do students cheat on exams? I think it depends on what the exam is, but ultimately they are or can be quite high pressured, and that with that pressure you feel that you have to do well on them. You pressure from society, from parents, from families, from yourself, and if you ultimately feel that you're not confident in that knowledge or understanding, then you look for alternative ways to do so. And so I think that's probably the biggest reason. Think about someone is cheating on an exam, not necessarily because it's easier, but I think because they lack confidence in their own ability to give a good performance. I think where students are confident in their ability to do well, they don't see the need to cheat. Okay, why is formative assessment important? I don't think anyone would argue with that. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how good your summative assessments are. They're only measuring the learning that's occurred. And I think any of us who work in education, ultimately we want students to do as well as they can. That's what's important to us. And that's what formative assessment is trying to do. It's trying to work out where the next set of progress can occur, where are our learners secure in their knowledge, their understanding, and where can we add further support in areas they're not sure in. And it's formative assessment that ultimately makes a difference to learning, that makes a difference to students' outcomes. And yeah, I would definitely argue that is probably the most important aspect of assessment. Why is feedback important in assessment? I'll peel off the end here as well. There we go. That's nice. It links back into that idea of formative assessment. Feedback is letting someone know, okay, this is what you have done. This is what your output on this assessment was. This is what a good performance would look like compared to your performance, and this is what you can do to close the gap. And it's feedback that's giving that kind of information. And often we think about feedback as something that teachers give to students, but we can also think about feedback as something students give to themselves, in that idea of self-regulated learning, of metacognition. What did I do well? What could I improve upon? And we can also think about feedback that assessments give to teachers, so letting teachers know, what are my students good at? What do they need more support in? How are they doing on this area? So yeah, lots of different kinds of feedback, all of them really, really important in assessment. And the last one, why is assessment changing? Probably lots of views on this. Some would say it's not changing quickly enough, whereas assessment is trying to reflect, I think, what our students can do. And I think ideally we would like assessments to resemble what they might go on and do later in life. So A lot of people at the moment would view it as quite a changing world. The use of AI, the movement towards more and more things being done digitally, and it is reasonable to expect assessment to perhaps try and mirror that. If we're wanting to measure how good you are at something, that's probably measuring how good you are doing this, ideally in a real world context, and so the assessments need to adapt to reflect that as well. So yeah, I think assessment has changed a lot. If you look at an exam paper now, it is very different from 150 years ago. It is almost certainly going to continue to change. Thank you.